Good morning. How are you guys doing? This is Richard Sachs, your host from Lost Arts Radio, doing this kind of off to the side show on Saturday morning. This is June 25th, 2016. It's a Q&A interactive show. And purpose for this show, on one level, what we're doing is we're looking at health information. And since health is connected to virtually everything else, then this has to do with all kinds of information that otherwise you might not have access to, and things that you're really not supposed to know about, as according to the power structure that's running things these days. So we want to bring you information that is going to help you control your own health, but really that's just a step in a means to feel good in general in your life. We want you to have really high energy and experience your normal state of being, which is beyond what any drug addict ever imagined. We're incredible beings, and we're kind of, most of us, out of touch with that. So the purpose of this show is to make a little contribution toward helping you get back in touch with those things. And if you're going to do that, then it's not going to be a map or a drug or an herb, depending on which approach you're taking. It's going to be things you learn about yourself, and you awaken connections and tools internally where you're sitting right now inside yourself that are so powerful you can't even imagine, and want you to get back in touch with that. That's the ulterior motive of this show. Well, there's one other ulterior motive, and that's that if even a small number of people actually do that, then it would change the entire face of the planet. And it doesn't take millions. It's so powerful, what we're talking about, that even a handful of people actually getting to that point could heal this place. And I guess that's really one of the main ulterior motives of the show. So, about some things that are going on in the outside world that you may or may not know about, or understand what they actually mean, and what's coming ahead of us right now. So we're going to talk about that, but in order to do that and not get upset by it, you really have to learn this skill that we've talked about before, which is separating your attention or your mind. And you've got to take the emotional part of it, which is you're eating on an emotional level 24 hours a day, every day, all the time. It's like sitting at the table for a meal and never leaving for your whole life. You're doing that, but probably not with physical food, but with what your attention stays on. And what that attention stays on in the way that I'm talking about, which I'll try to describe it in detail, but when your attention stays on something in the way that I mean, you absorb the energy and the feeling of it. So if you put your attention in that way on some terrible things in war, you're going to feel really bad. And that's how you know that you're connected to it, and you're absorbing the energy that saturates that thing, whatever it is. If you take that same faculty of your attention or your mind and you put it onto something inspiring to you, something that makes you feel really energized and happy, that you're going to know that you're using that emotional eating faculty, and it's going to help you in anything else that you're doing. So choose consciously right now. Try it. Think of something that makes you incredibly, energized and uplifted and inspired and joyful, and hook that quality of emotional absorbing energy onto that thought, that feeling. Imagine what it's like, and feel it in your body. And if it doesn't come into your body, you're not doing it. So connect to it until your body feels just vibrating with that. And the challenge that I'm giving you is leave it there for the rest of the show and the rest of the day and the rest of your life. And you're probably not going to get good at that instantly, so you'll probably forget about it completely and get all wrapped up in other things, which is fine. But if you remember it, and you go back to what you were trying to do, and you just don't beat yourself up or get mad or anything like that. Just relax internally and bring it back and feel the effect in your body, and you'll know when it's connected. And leave it there. I know this is a terrible explanation. I'm trying to let you know what this is about. Because this is one of the most important skills you can ever learn in your whole life. At least as long as you're on this planet, when things are a little challenging. So practice it as much as you can. Now, once you do that, this is not the same as ignoring what's around you and just living in this other world. Because what I'm asking you to do is more than that. I want you to leave that attention connection, that emotional connection, where is the best energy coming in for you. And while it's there, take your intellectual, analytical mind and put it on whatever you have to do. Whether it's your work that you're doing, to do a great job at whatever job you have, or whatever job around the house you're doing, or whatever you're helping somebody with, or whatever you're trying to accomplish. Put your just your intellectual ability on that and do the best job you can, but don't let it ruin your emotional state. And you don't do this with stress. If you try to do it with tension and stress, you're not doing it. There has to be an internal, the deepest relaxation you can imagine. Your muscles can still move, and you can still do all your stuff, and you could even be, running in a track meet or a swim meet, or, lifting weights, or doing some really hard job internally. At the same time, if you're doing this, you stay super relaxed. And you just allow this inflow of inspiring energy, and it's going to tell you all kinds of very interesting things when you start doing this. And it's going to make you much stronger and more effective in your outer campaigns if you're somebody that is really working to try to get rid of harmful things in the environment, that cell towers or chemtrails or nuclear power plants or biotech labs, secret virus factories that the CDC runs or whatever. That's fine, but it'll make you more effective at that if you're doing your internal homework at the same time. Not separately, not only when you're sitting quiet, meditating, but all the time. And it is possible. It's not only possible, it's your normal condition. We just got a little sidetracked for our whole life. So see what you can do with that, and practice it while I'm telling you all these terrible things about what's going on in the world. Or not all terrible, because some of it's what you can do that is positive response. But watch your emotional state while we're talking. See if you're doing your homework. So in the outside world, there's some really good stuff going on. For example, apparently the people in Great Britain voted to get out of the European Union, which is fantastic. The European Union was never something that they decided for themselves. It's an attempt to consolidate one more big step toward world dictatorship, and it's not a great, brilliant thing to do, unless you're the world controllers that want to enslave everybody, and then it is a great thing to do. So anyway, they voted to get out. It doesn't mean that the rulers are going to let them out. No, that would be too easy. What it means is they start a process. It could take a couple of years or more. And what that's for is to see if they're actually going to let them go back to being their own country. As if anybody should have any say in that whatsoever. But at least this is a huge step. Now, at the same time, there was a murder that, was blamed on the people wanting their own independence, even though there was no connection. And the markets, the stock markets, the British market, the U.S. market, and many others declined quite a bit. And that is supposed to be blamed on people wanting their independence, showing that it's a very terrible thing to do. And it's not the case. I mean, the bankers that are in charge control the markets completely. They're not free market. They don't go up and down with demand and supply like they're supposed to. Well, they kind of do, except the biggest demand can be affected in a fake way by the central banks, because they just push some keys on the computer and that's considered money. And then they throw it into the market, or they take it out of the market, and it makes it go up and down cataclysmically. In times when they want to teach the people a lesson, like you shouldn't try to get your freedom or anything terrible like that. So that's what's going on there, and it just has to be ignored. So anyway, that's one of the things that's going on, but it's a super good sign that the people in Britain would actually vote to have their independence, because if every country has independence, that's real diversity, and they get to protect their own culture and honor that and interact freely with all the other countries, but without losing their independence. And that's something that the world leaders are trying to teach you is not good. So, just watch it, but don't necessarily fall for that. Stay more conscious. And it comes right back to the homework that I told you in the beginning of our show today. Do your homework and you'll be amazed what you'll learn. Because the secret source of learning about anything is internal. I hope you can kind of absorb what that means. It's a pretty big deal. It doesn't mean don't study. You still have to do all the study. And when you're in the physical world, you've got to do all these physical things. You've got to play these games well. You've got to be as successful as you can at everything that's put before you. You have to be grateful for every experience that comes to you, even if it seems like the worst thing that could happen. And if you switch that little attitude thing, I can't even describe to you what will happen. So anyway, the artificial fall of some of the stock markets when Britain voted to get out of, or to attempt to get out of the EU, just is a reminder that one of the things we're supposed to be working on right now in preparing for what the rulers may do to us if their plans succeed is we need to come up with an alternative economic system. This is one of our little jobs on the side here that we need to be looking at. Something that's going to minimize the impact of the planned economic collapse that's coming. And I'm sorry to get into all this stuff if people just want me to talk about, what to eat and things like that. But this is huge health-related information, okay? It's not only what you eat, although that is important. The idea of holistic health does not just mean use herbs. It means you have to understand everything is connected to everything else. And as far as I know, there are no exceptions. And time and distance don't limit that at all. So, one of the little things we did is try to put this gold thing on our website that's under Carrot Bar, so you can give at least a little bit of support to Lost Arts Research Institute if you get involved in that. But the main thing about it is it gives you a chance to, for small amounts of money, start saving a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more in gold, whose value, I think, will go up dramatically as the value of the currency continues to fall. I don't know if we'll have time to save enough of that or, move enough of that to really make the difference that we need to, but I figured even though it's late, it's probably a good thing. So you might want to look at that on the website, lostartsradio.com, or see if it's something that will be helpful to you and make your own decision on that. It is an MLM, which I apologize for on the site, but if you don't do it in an obnoxious way, you can make money from it, and that would not be bad. So take a look at that, but we're looking for other more basic ways that we can help people be okay in the coming economic collapse. Gold is not the only thing. Silver is really good too. What they call junk silver, which is not particular numismatic years, that are real rare, because if things get bad, you're not going to be able to find people who recognize what year is what on a coin. But the junk silver is just silver at the base rate, quarters or 50-cent pieces, and they could be used if paper money becomes worthless, which it's gone 98% of the way to that. Sometimes forget that, since the private corporation that's mostly foreign-owned called the Federal Reserve, which is not federal, took over with the consent of a corrupt Congress in 1913. The paper money and the computer entries about what money is supposed to be in your accounts has lost, I think it's a little over 98% of its value. So they're well on their way, and they're looking at the other 2% now. So I think gold and silver are one thing to get back in your possession. Another thing is to be, most people unfortunately are in big cities, and it's not our fault. That's where all the remaining, or most of the remaining economic, jobs and stuff are, in the cities. But we need to get reconnected to sources of local food. Farmers markets are one of these that are going on right now. The farms themselves would be probably even better to get in touch with. And remember, too, I got to tell you this, and I got reminded of it when I went to a farmer's market last week, that just because somebody's selling in a farmer's market doesn't mean the food is any good. There are some really good vendors there in most of them, but they have to be organic. It does not matter if they're certified organic in the least, because from what I can see, USDA, which is the one that certifies organic, is completely not trustable. They're the biggest pushers of GMOs that I know of. There's great people working in it, like all government agencies, but at the top, the people that direct it are seriously confused. They think it's a really good idea to be evil and to try to hurt people for power and money, and that's not brilliant. That's what they're doing, and that's why all these agencies, most of which are totally illegal to even exist, according to the Constitution, are not doing good things. So what I would say is, when you go to a farmer's market, question the vendors if they're really organic. Chemical fertilizer, they don't use any, even if they don't use any pesticides, if they use chemical fertilizer at all, they're not organic, because chemical fertilizer messes up the soil microorganisms, the balance, and the universe that's microscopic in the soil that feeds started. And this guy, Justus von Liebig, a German scientist, was the original guy that figured out chemical fertilizers. And by the end of his life, he decided it was a big mistake. So, find out at the farmer's market who's doing what. And then the other thing is, hold on, I'm getting a message from Doug here. Doug said my connection was dropped for a minute. Hopefully you guys didn't miss too much of what I was saying. It was just about when you're at a farmer's market, to question the vendors and find out if they're actually organic or not, what you can do. So let me see. And so I was going to go into quite a different subject here next, and I think before I do, I want to see if Doug, we have somebody with a question on the line, but I can't see a name on it. Is there a name there or a subject? See if you can figure that out. And I want to go back into I just wanted to ask you a couple of things. One is whether you heard the show that we did on Islam education, because I think that is very important. That's becoming a big health issue right now. People may think that because it's a political thing, and the country's being invaded by huge numbers of illegal immigrants, that a certain percentage of them specifically are coming here to destroy the culture in the country. That turns out to be a health issue. And we had an incredible discussion with a man named Dr. Bill Warner, who's going to be back for, I think, further installments. But he gave us an incredible introduction, and I wanted to go into that just a little bit. So, okay, maybe we're not going to get a specific here, but let me talk to this person from 630 and see what's on your mind before we go into our next division here. Lisa, what's going on, Lisa?
Hi. Yeah. Oh, I like your talk so far about Europe and different things. It's kind of interesting.
Okay. Hopefully, I'm not discouraging you because it's not an obvious health topic, because I think it is.
No, it's just very interesting. I kind of got a lot out of it. I agreed with some things you were saying.
Okay, great.
So I just have a question. So, I found out like 3 months ago about a health issue that's pretty serious, and I'm trying to get it taken care of. Do you see that coming through in the next, couple weeks? I have something pending, and I'm supposed to find out about it shortly.
Who are you supposed to find out about it from?
Through my insurance company.
I think what's important. I mean, I certainly don't know the details of what you're dealing with, but in general, it seems to me that what's important is to find out what's causing it, what's keeping it going, and what could.
No, I know all that. What's causing everything. I need to be treated, so I'm trying to get treatment.
You're just wondering whether you're going to get the approval from the insurance people.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Depends on where it goes, and I think usually what happens is they come back with some kind of conditions, and so you're going to have to really look. No.
They're
not going to do that.
It's just I need to have it approved. It has to go through procedure, so I should know in about another week. So I just wonder what you see with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't normally give people future readings, but my feeling about that is that something good's going to happen with it. But that's just, that doesn't mean I'm right. I tend to.
I feel so too, because it's just necessary, and it's been spelled out what's needed, and you just have to go through the channels.
Okay,
so I'm kind of waiting for that.
It feels really good to me at this point, but we'll just have to see what happens.
And then I had another question. You don't do future readings, but do you kind of see anything like going on now for me, like some good stuff in the next few weeks, or? Because I've been kind of working with someone else too, like someone that's been helping me. I had to hire them, but I feel kind of like I've gone through a lot with them. They have not pretty much, I guess I was like pretty nervous about some stuff, so that it was hard for him to kind of relate to me. And now I've asked for some return calls, and I'm paying for it and everything if I get the call back. But I asked for a call back like Thursday and Friday, didn't get it. I left a message Friday because I think he might have thought I wasn't serious, because I used to just call or write him when the stuff was going on, but now I'm just kind of sitting back, and I really do have questions. So I told him, thanks for your help, but I do have some stuff I need to review with you. He kind of handles things there, but I'm hoping to get a contact back from him next week. Do you think that I'll hear back early next week?
I think there's something going on that you're not aware of with him, and I don't know what it is, but I would say that remember that no matter how great somebody is in helping you, no matter who it is, that the ultimate source is always going to be inside yourself. Try to really grasp what I'm saying here. It's not just some superficial thing. The reason that people can help you on the outside is because they can reconnect you and remind you to what you've got in your internally. And it's not just necessarily one person indefinitely. One person can be incredibly helpful, and then that can be it for what you're supposed to get from them. And then the next minute or the next day or the next week, there's some other involvement that you're supposed to have that's going to, kind of clue you to the next step for yourself. So what you need to be really excited about and inspired about is the overwhelmingly incredible teacher that you've got inside yourself. And if one of these people can help you to reconnect to that another step, that's fantastic. But they don't necessarily have to do the one after that. And if you're listening internally, you're going to keep being led to whatever's the right connection that you need, one after the other. And one may be the right one for years, but it might be one just for one time. So stay flexible. Don't get latched onto any external source.
Right. So what you're saying is that might have been helpful for a month or two, but I might need someone else for the next step, because if my style doesn't click with theirs and you're not getting a return phone call on a business transaction,
Well, yeah, that's important, because unless there's some major emergency, somebody who tells you they're going to call you back, they should probably do that. And you're gonna know the.
I was told. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna know the answers to these things. When you're uncomfortable about something, you gotta get really quiet and ask yourself, what exactly are you uncomfortable about? And the answer's there instantly, okay, unless you block it. So if this is useful in any kind of situation, not just in dealing with a person like you are. But if something is, always be aware of whether something's bothering you, even if it's very distant and vague. Sometimes the reason it feels distant and vague is because you're blocking it out and you're not listening. And really, it might be screaming, and you're just not listening to it.
No, but I am listening. Like, I've taken action. I got a different doctor. I took action with a lot of things that are not good, that weren't working for me. So I kind of feel almost like maybe this person even won't get back to me, and that might mean that that's not the style I need, and I might need to get someone else then to go ahead with the, it's like a case with a situation. Find someone else that's willing to work more like a partnership, and just touch base with me every couple of weeks and keep me totally up to date with what's going on. So I might have to do that.
It's okay. I mean, it's fine to change, and it's nothing. It's not like you're rejecting them as a person or anything. It's just you need to keep going with your own self-education.
I have to get my needs met.
Yeah. And so does everybody else. It's just a normal thing. And you can respect everybody.
And with this, there's something like there's a bank that was handling things for my parents. They passed away. I'm just going to call the bank administrator as well. The information from him I need right now, and then find someone else to work with to help represent me, because, it's kind of like we have to sell the house of my parents and do different things.
Yeah, the more you depend on experts and other people saying, don't worry, we'll let you know if there's something important for you to know, but we'll take care of everything for you. You have to be really careful of stuff like that.
Well,
because the only one really...
I think the person is very good, and that wouldn't be a problem. However, it's not the style I need. I need more hand-holding.
Right. So, no, I'm saying even if they're the right person, my suggestion is stay aware of what they're doing.
Oh, of course. That's why I'm comfortable. Absolutely, I'm not. It's just I'm not a child. You need to be more one-on-one. So I think I'm doing the right thing then. I'm just going to kind of...
I think you are too.
I'm going to just call this bank administrator first, talk to him, and then if I don't get a call back from this guy, then just find someone else to work with that will meet my needs.
It's okay. Maybe the guy's doing you a favor by showing you that your time working with that person is over.
Right, because, but that's surprising to me when you could be like a lawyer and not get back to a client when you said you would within 24 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
So what that means is they think you're a sucker, that you're just going to put up with it and let them do whatever they want and work on the case at their own rate. They may be a lawyer or whatever they are, but they're actually a human being first, and they've got programming since before they were born, and they're living according to all those thousands of assumptions in their programming,
and you're just getting to experience a little bit of the result of it.
So you mean like that's the way they think, like they're just not very nurturing, you know?
Right, it's normal to them. So it's not like something necessarily on purpose against you or about you at all. It's just about them.
Why would a client like put up with that?
Because they have been trained in their programming that they have no choice.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you start listening to everybody's got programs running, and it's just a question of which ones, good or bad or better or whatever. And we're so
because
used
like I had a doctor when I had this problem, and the doctor told me, well, we don't communicate via regular phone. I'll just be in touch with you by email. And then she put me on a drug that like almost killed me. Like if I hadn't like known what it was, I found out through
Well, of course they wouldn't want to talk about it.
Would have had an interaction. So she didn't want to help me. So guess what? I got out within a day. So basically, I am aware. Yeah, I mean, I'm aware and I know what I deserve, but I think sometimes I try to hang on a little bit too long, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Just go with your gut feeling from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's usually right.
If you just if you just relax and allow that, you'll be fine. And I think what
and I agreed with you.
Go ahead.
I agreed with you with what you said about the Brexit. This is a very serious thing that's going to like topple over to other things in the world. I mean, separate from me, people don't realize this, but this is an extremely serious issue that happened. It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it's something like American independence from Britain originally. And in this case, it's not even a king in this case. It's an unelected bureaucracy that's trying to control all those countries.
But I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But this is one domino. We're talking. There's Greece. There's Italy. It's a shambles.
Sure,
what's happening.
That's right. And this one could lead to other ones.
Out of control.
The big question is.
It's very interesting what you said, like about gold and silver, and I mean, people don't realize it. This is crazy. I mean, youngsters coming out in the world now, 20 years old. I mean, I feel really sorry for that generation. There's not a lot of hope right now, and it's really sad for them. You know, I'm older, so I'm not so affected, but I mean, it's really crazy. The world is just going in the wrong direction. I mean,
and you know, even if they're not our personal kids and grandchildren, they kind of are in a way. You know, we're not disconnected. So if we want them to have a better chance, we need to really do our homework and get as aware as we can and contribute in some way. We can do it.
I mean, I thought it was really interesting what you said. Do you think it's the tip of the iceberg? I felt like you were inferring that from what you said.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that could happen, you know, in kind of a cascade, and this is just, you know, one little part of it. There's so many things in motion right now. It's like we're in this huge epic drama and we're seeing one tiny little piece of it, but it's all happening.
I know, but you can't get into the drama. It's very serious. You just have to stay away because it's very evil. And
well, I'm not saying to get
people.
Yeah, I'm not saying to get overwhelmed by it, but I'm just saying to split your mind like we were talking about in the beginning and keep your focus and your center and your emotional basis on what uplifts you. But the other part where you're just like looking at a chess game, because of caring about the people involved, you look at it, analyze it, and see what little things that you can do that are positive. And we can all do that.
Yeah,
so I think it's exciting what you're doing.
I'm going to keep on taking back my personal power more because I do know the answers right away, actually, my sixth sense.
You do.
And just go with it because I'm not a pushover, and a lot of people, like you said, just settle for such second rate in life, and it just becomes a habit. And I can't ever live my life like that, especially like the last few years I've changed, and I'm more or less learning to live more for me, and that to really do follow your gut and not just listen to society. And I tell you, it's fabulous. I mean, it's just,
you know, what's funny about that is when you really live for yourself, you suddenly start being able to help and be a good influence for other people.
Well, I don't worry so much about that. I'm more concerned about being an influence for myself for a change, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, if you just do that,
I think I might help others by helping myself. So basically, I've got to just work on all this stuff for myself right now.
Yeah,
but, anyway,
it's the same thing.
I appreciated what you told me, and I'm going to follow my gut this week. Can I just ask you real quick? Do you think he'll even get back to me at all, or he wouldn't? Because I feel like he might, but we might end up with a discussion where he doesn't like what I tell him.
Yeah, what might happen is that he might come back to you in a defensive manner, because there's something he's worried about, most likely. But I don't think you don't have to have any concern about it, because if you follow what you know, you're going to be fine.
Do you think, though, that I will get a return call? Because I do need closure with him. I've got to, let him know then if he cannot respond to me in this way every couple of weeks, then I'm pretty much going to need my questions answered. I'll pay for it. But if he feels that he's just going to handle it and come to me when he has answers, that's not going to work, that style. There has to be a give and take. Do you think that he will respond? And do you think he'll respond to that at all?
My guess is that he'll want his own kind of closure on it, too. And he's not going to have that until he talks to you, but he's going to want to talk to you in a way that he can control things. So I just wouldn't worry about it. You know what you have to do. So and you
I'll at least get a return call, because I need that to release my information to someone else. I need him to return my call at least this week.
If I had to say what I think is more likely, I think you probably will. But, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. But I know that the other thing that it's giving you as a lesson opportunity right now is that there's two things, ideally, that you would do at once for your own clarity and strength. Mm-hmm. One is to be clear like you are, that you may need to work with somebody a little more appropriate. And the other is that realize what he's doing is not about you. He's suffering from his own programming, like everybody is. And what you do,
but
this is really okay. But listen to this one. Okay, Lisa, one thing here, and that is that the subtle things are really powerful. So what you feel and think toward him is going to affect you. So what you want to do is monitor what your feelings about and toward him are now, and make sure that you replace those with wishing him the best of what will help him, no matter what that is, and wish everything wonderful for him. And this is a secret behind, there's some religious teachings, which this is not, and they say, do good to those that hurt you, right? And people think, well, that in real life, that's really dumb, right? Because you don't want to be a victim. It's not. It's because they're not understanding what it means. When you send sincere wishes for everything good to come to somebody who's being pretty negative toward you, you're saving and insulating yourself from the contagion of any of their programming.
Yeah. Okay. So,
that'll help you.
Do you think, though, what I found is sometimes when you do tell people, they will change a little bit? But you're saying
sometimes, but just don't count on that, because they're going to go according to what they're ready to learn, and we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So if you continue working on yourself, the people that are susceptible to being helped by you will be.
Okay. God bless you. I'm going to stay on and listen. I think you're very smart.
I hope you do. Well,
thank you.
I'm making up for doing every one of these mistakes myself, so I'm right in the same boat with everybody.
Okay. Well,
anyway,
listen, life is a interesting journey, and I'm thankful that that I'm in touch with my feelings and that I'm empowered much more than most people. So I have no complaints. It's just
it's going to get a lot better.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to get really good.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. I just love it. It's great.
All right.
I just love being an outsider in the world. You don't have to be like everyone else. Just be yourself.
No, just have to be like yourself if you can figure that out.
Okay, I'm going to listen. God bless you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, so thank you, Lisa. And go back to what I was going to say. We got this big issue that the rulers of the world that really don't have our best interests or our health in mind, as you probably noticed. in addition to the movement toward a complete economic collapse, they're now and they got really frustrated by making believe through the U.S. that they were really fighting the terrorists in Syria while they were arming and training and, supporting them in every way they can while they were saying that they were fighting them, which wasn't true. And then the president of Syria asked the president of Russia if you would please come in and help us before our country is destroyed. And Russia came in for, a few days and just wiped out huge masses of the attacking terrorists in Syria, embarrassing the U.S. and NATO and the global power structure because they were supporting the bad guys instead of fighting with them. So they said, well, okay, let's see what else we can do. Why don't we use those same terrorists if Russia's going to be not play fair and block them coming into Syria? Let's just send them into the whole of Western Europe and the U.S. and destroy those societies. So that's what they started to do. And they said, these are widows and orphans, and if you're not compassionate, shame on you. You should let them all in right away with no papers and no legalities and give them welfare and let them destroy the culture as they would like. This is what we're in the middle of right now. And somehow they organized it with all the European leaders like Merkel in Holland and the leaders in Sweden and other places to support the invasion and destruction of their own countries. So what they offered them for that, I don't know. But it must have been something pretty attractive, along with threats of what would happen to them if they didn't go along with it. And the Wahhabi Muslims that we heard about from Dr. Bill Warner last week, and I really recommend that you listen to that archive. It's very instructive. They were perfect for the job because their belief system is that they need to take over all other cultures, overrun them, and kill everybody that doesn't convert to their brand of Islam, which is what is in their basic scriptures, as Dr. Warner was explaining. And so the thing is that, they're in the process of doing that right now, and they're getting ready to really do it on a massive scale in the U.S. And what we're being told is that we are racist if we object to being overrun and killed, and that this is very, Islamophobic and things like that. Anything they can do to make everybody from different groups hate each other, this is what the power structure wants, and it's very bad for your health. That's why we get to talk about it. Because if you hate anybody, if you're a non-Muslim and you hate Muslims, that's really bad for you, and it's not a good idea. And if you're a Muslim and you hate all the infidels and want to kill them or support the people who do, that's really not good for you either. So it brings up a dilemma. What do you do when the power structure that you are supposedly under, whether it's the U.S. government, NATO, crazy leaders in Europe that want their own countries destroyed, any religion, not just Islam, but any religion that tells you that you're the only one that's right and anybody that doesn't convert to your belief has to be killed. If you're given those orders, or if you're in a country like Germany in the 1930s and you're told that all the Jews or the Gypsies or other people have to be killed, what do you do? This is a really big dilemma. Because let's suppose that you're not totally hypnotized and that you're actually somewhat conscious. And wait a minute, there's something really wrong with this picture. I'm being ordered by the officials in my organization, whether it's a religion or a government or whatever, that all these other people are evil and we have to kill them. Kind of like what the U.S. government said about the Libyan people when Obama was saying, we'll just declare a no-fly zone over their country, which immediately you should realize there's a lot wrong with that proposal. And we'll do this to protect them from their terrible leader, which we don't approve of, and for their own benefit, if they don't go along with us, we'll go and bomb their entire country. This is what the U.S. and NATO did to Libya. And it looks to me like it ties into our economic discussion from earlier, because one of the things that Gaddafi was doing, he was a dictator, It wasn't a constitutional republic, but as a dictator, sometimes what happens is you see dictators that are actually benevolent and help their people by order. And some of what he was doing that. He put in this incredible water system, which of course the bombing destroyed completely. And he was giving the people the free ability to go to college. He was giving people their first home. He was taking the oil money from the country, which went to the government in his case, and using a lot of it to help the people. But his main crime wasn't just that in the eyes of the U.S. and NATO governments. It was that he had a bank in his country that was not a member of the central banking system. And it was based on gold, called the gold dinar. And he was going to spread it to all of Africa. This was absolutely unacceptable. That's why he had to be bombed and his family murdered by the U.S., including Hillary Clinton, Obama, and all the people, Republican and Democrat, that supported that. They're all in on the mass murder of tens of thousands of Libyan civilians. And it was just unbelievable. Later on, Hillary Clinton was on video saying, "We came, we saw, he died," and then she starts laughing. These people need serious mental help, okay, and they don't need to be running around free because they do so much damage. And the thing that I'm talking about here is when authorities order you to hurt and kill your fellow man and woman and child and animal and biosphere, what do you do? And for thousands and thousands of years, criminal gangs of all kinds have used this technique to get their nasty plans done to people by getting everybody else so terrified that they feel that they have to serve them. Okay, if you disobey some of the drug gangs in Mexico, they don't send you a letter of reprimand. They may kill you and hang you from a freeway overpass. And gangs operate this way, whether they're called religions or governments or private gangs. Anarchy would not help at all, even though I love Jeff Berwick and he's a great guy, and so are all the other voluntarist, friendly anarchy people that I know of who are not violent. They're saying that if you just get rid of all government, everything would be great. No, it wouldn't. Because there have been a lot of places in history where the government has not been the main criminal, it's been private gangs. And if you the only reason governments become really terrible is that the private gangs use them and they start filling their top positions to overrun all their victims and get rich and powerful, and that's their drug trip that makes them feel really, that they're getting what they want in their life. This is what Alex calls the New World Order, is the biggest, cartel of gangs at the top level that are doing the same thing. And when a country like the UK dares to vote for its own independence, whether or not it actually will get it or not is another question, then they have to be taught a lesson, and they allow the stock market to, fall several percent in one day. And they could take that further. It depends on their strategy. They're always working on strategy. And they just have to decide what we need to have as a lesson so that we won't dare to disobey anymore. And they could crash it all the way. They could crash it part way. They could bring it up again. These are strategy things that they have thousands and thousands of people working on every day. So, it's really tough. I have great compassion for people in any religion, not just the Muslim religion, but any religion that you absolutely devote your life to, and then the leader points out something in the book that you're bound to, or even the verbal teaching that you're bound to, and said, well, for your own good, you just have to kill all these people that we're telling you are bad. Every religion that I know of on the planet has participated in that at some time. And the penalty for disobeying is not good. So I'm not telling you what the answer is. I know it's very difficult. But even, I mentioned this before, even the Buddhist religion, which is about the most pacifist one I can think of, has had times and places in certain parts of Africa. I found out that they were involved in killing all the Sikhs because of some stupid thing. I don't even remember what the excuse was. But we have something internal to us, like we were talking about with Lisa a few minutes ago, that is a source of unbelievably beautiful and accurate guidance. And anybody can have it. If you want to know the answers to things and you want a source that's better than any outside authority, you already have it. You just got disconnected. And you're going to have to be quiet for a minute. You're going to have to stop the chattering and the screaming about what's right and what's wrong, and be quiet and listen, because there are sources of consciousness higher than where we are right now. And we have connection to them all the way back to where we came from. But it takes work to reconnect to that. So, in Florida, the guy that killed people in Orlando, and I don't know the false flag aspects of it, but there were reporters on the scene quickly after, and it looked like there really were people killed. The guy who did it apparently said he was doing it for Allah, in other words, God. And a lot of people who've been shooting police and other things lately have been saying they're doing it for the same reason, or raping masses of women like in Sweden, because it's a really good thing, because it'll spread Islam. You have something internal to yourself you need to check with. And it's really hard to do that once you have any absolute belief system in place, especially if you're trained from birth. But as much as you're blocking it out, you still have it. And it kind of reminds me of, we talk about the Constitution in the U.S., and this is one of the few countries that has such a clear constitution that says the people are in charge, not a democracy. It's absolutely not a democracy, because in a democracy you can vote to take away the minorities' rights or even their lives, and it's still a democracy. But in a constitutional republic that says everybody is sovereign and their rights are untouchable if they don't take away the rights of others, then even a minority of one person, you, if no one agrees with you, they can't touch your rights. And the Constitution in the U.S. is the reflection of something that you have internally. And you get a clue from that. It doesn't, in other words, it doesn't give. There's a lot of letters that the founders wrote and things about it. The Constitution doesn't grant any rights to anybody. It just recognizes that we already have them. So even if there were never a Constitution, even if the United States never declared independence, even in other countries where they're living under total tyranny, even in religions where you're told you have to kill people under certain circumstances if they try to escape from your religion, or if they do other things that, for example, this imam in Florida, I think it was in Florida, he was online saying that, yes, the penalty for homosexuals is death. You have to kill them. But be really compassionate while you kill them and get rid of them. Now, you can listen to this yourself. If you don't think there's anything wrong with that, you're seriously out of touch with what's inside you. Because this God thing about spirit or the source or Allah or whatever you want to call the ultimate God, it's real. Not in the way where you have to go and fight and kill people because of it, or that to show compassion you have to murder whole groups of people. Not like that. It's real in the sense that the great spiritual teachers have always demonstrated, and that's that you have to sincerely send love and wishes for everything good to absolutely everybody. It's called unconditional. Even if there's some crazy person trying to kill you and you have to defend yourself with lethal force, which you may if certain things happen, you are not to hate them, because it's not just because it's not correct. Who cares about that? You don't hate them because, according to this law of nature, whatever you send out in thought to anyone else comes back to you multiplied. If that's all you understand, you've got enough to probably get everything done in your life that you need to do, including your own lessons. Because if you really grasp it, then you start pouring out, I mean sincere wishes for the benefit of everybody. You don't do like this Imam said and kill them while you're wishing them well. You may do that in self-defense, but not to wipe out some innocent group like he's suggesting. And you try to avoid having to use even defensive violence. Violence is not a great solution. If you're pressed and there's just no other course to save your life or save the lives of people around you, then that's your responsibility. But the greatest martial arts people and the greatest warriors are ones that have no glamorous idea about fighting at all. It doesn't make you cool as much as the jihadis think it might. It doesn't. It makes you very foolish, because this is what you're bringing on yourself. So you immediately, if you understand that one thing, you spend your time trying to send the most sincere, emotionally backed good wishes to everybody, every individual, including especially those that are difficult in your life. Those are opportunities. So, it's not like I'm offering any really great solution, because when you're in one of those gangs, whatever it's called, that will kill you if you try to escape from it or disobey, it's not so easy to just give up your life in order to stand for truth. But at some point, we may get to each one of us may get to a certain point where we don't have a choice. And it's like, yeah, you might be asked, there's stories in different scriptures and things about people who were asked to deny their religion in order to live, and some of them didn't and they were killed. But really, we're being asked to deny it all the time. If we're being asked to follow orders that we know are wrong, it's not just the Nazis ordered to kill Jews and gypsies and some Christians and other people like that. What about if you're a drone operator and you're told to blow up a wedding party because there might be a terrorist in there? And the definition of terrorist is whatever your bosses say it is. What if it's that you're a farmer and you're told by the chemical representative that you have to dry your corn crop to make it more profitable by spraying it with glyphosate? What if you're a CPS worker who's told to steal kids because their parents might have used marijuana? So the kids have to be kidnapped and put in foster care where they're probably going to be put on drugs, much worse than marijuana, and a lot of them are going to die. What do you do if that's your job? And you're going to lose your job if you don't obey. What if you're in Congress and you're told to vote on a bill without reading it? What if you're told to vote on almost all the bills without reading them? And that if you vote the way that you're told, that the lobbyist will give you lots of campaign money, free vacations, tell you how smart you are, everybody will look up to you, and if you don't, you probably won't get reelected. What if you're a policeman? You got to imagine, don't look at it as somebody else. You're a policeman or a policewoman, and you're in Tennessee or some other state where they let you do highway robbery from the motorists. And it's fine, it's okay, because it's called civil asset forfeiture and it's completely legal. Governments make all kinds of crimes legal when they want to do them. So what if you're ordered to go out that day and find somebody who can't fight back? Maybe an old lady who lived through the Depression and carries her cash with her. And you're being told to take it from under her seat. Do a quick test on it for drugs, which it will have positive drugs on it because all money does. And then you're supposed to take it away from her and tell her, she's lucky you don't take her car. What do? It's taken you 30 years of seniority to get there. What do? Or what if you're working for the IRS or your state tax agency? And some of you are. And you're told to find anything wrong with the tax return of a middle-aged couple who owns a house because you can probably get the house. What do? Do you lose your job? Or do you figure out a creative alternative where you can get together with other employees and do something? I mean, you know the story of Joe Bannister, right? I mean, probably most of you do. Joe Bannister was an enforcer for the IRS, carried a gun, and found out what mistakes people had made on their tax returns and which ones could be called intentional and which ones were good enough mistakes where he might be able to take their car, their house, or maybe even put them in prison or watch while enforcers come in and take everything they've got. And he saw an ad in the newspaper one time. I don't know if it was from Sherry Jackson or somebody else, probably somebody else, and it said, $50,000 reward. All you have to do is show me the law that says you have to pay income tax. And this is another gang, okay? The income tax enforcers, it's exactly like what I told you about. Because they're telling you, unless you pay your income tax, you're going to prison maybe for life, and you're going to lose everything you had. So Joe Bannister had been enforcing this law on everybody, taking everything they had, watching these families destroyed with his gun and his badge. And he said, this idiot lady or whoever it was is running this ad, $50,000 for somebody to show the law that you have to pay income tax. When I have a spare 5 minutes, I'll take care of that and get the $50,000. So he started looking at it, and he couldn't find a law. He spent months and months, and he was a really expert researcher, and he couldn't find the law. And he finally he couldn't believe it. He said, I couldn't have been stealing from these people for decades, and there'd be no law saying that what I was doing was right. So he took it to his bosses inside the IRS, and they said, you can resign now. They wouldn't tell him any kind of law because in his account, and you can listen to him on YouTube anytime, Joe Bannister, he's got a lot of great talks on there. As far as he's concerned, there's no law, and he hasn't filed income taxes since then, as far as I know. But it's another gang. And if you try to stand against it and you don't have the expertise and the money that he had, then they'll probably, destroy your life. And I can't tell you the answer to that because I don't know what I would do in that situation where my organization would kill me if I told the truth. You only know when you get your chance to try it out. And many of us are going to get the chance, probably, in one way or another. So it's a matter of not looking at other people and saying, what are they, serving that's bad? We have to look at ourselves and say, all right, what are you caught in? Ask yourself. Because everybody's caught in something, some level of hypocrisy. And even if you've made great progress and you become really clear, much more out in the open, the way to keep making progress internally is recalibrate to zero. Okay, say where you are is zero now. What is the next thing that you have to realize that you can escape in yourself that you need to start being honest about, and that you need to start contributing to what happens in the world by sending out good wishes instead of condemnation to other people. And it doesn't matter if they're doing good or bad in your mind. You have to send them the best wishes that you possibly can, no matter how bad they are. And the bad ones need it more. So if there's somebody you disagree with and you think they're doing great harm, wish good for them and mean it. Because if awakening comes to them, they're going to change course and not keep doing all the harm. And don't worry about people using other names for things, or whatever their belief system is and all the words and phrases they use that are acceptable, and they think that the way you explain things are all wrong. And even if they don't have to kill you, at least they have to disagree with you and say everything bad about you. This original source that all these belief systems are talking about, this God that's beyond anything that we can imagine, that's all benevolent and has this, just incredible light and is everywhere. Do we really think that that's some kind of a limited person that's going to get their feelings hurt if we use the wrong words? It's time to graduate from that, because the world is in serious trouble at the moment. And there's a power that's infinitely greater than fear, and we're the conduits that it can flow through as long as we're here. So if you have the decision that's going to affect the fate of the world, which is basically what flows through you, because it's infinitely powerful, and that means you don't need millions of you to make a huge change. One person could have this massive impact. So remember, there was an old question they were talking about during the Vietnam War in the 60s. And that was, what if they gave a war and nobody came to it? It sounds sort of silly and superficial, but it's not. It's really deep, because we're in wars every day. And we have to decide whether to be part of the devastation or part of the healing from it. And there's a lady named Charlotte Keyes in 1966, I think, that was the origin of that phrase, what if they gave a war and nobody came? It was in an article she wrote for McCall magazine, which I don't even know if that exists. I suspect it doesn't anymore. It might. It's not silly. It's very deep, powerful, and challenging. So whatever orders from your own programming that you're following right now, it's easy to scream in your mind that you're justified and everybody who is against you has to be killed or put in their place in some way, whether it's coming from a government, corporation, or religion. It's coming from your programming. That's where the power is. And it's what makes you a tool of spreading harm and death and terror. Maybe you're working on some technology for the biotech industry that is going to cause people to no longer have any future generations after the third generation, or that it's going to cause cancer. You've read Jeffrey Smith's books on GMOs, or you've read about the harm that comes from Wi-Fi systems, and especially cell towers and smart meters, and you're still doing it. So if you remember that there's this thing called the inner constitution that our Constitution in America reflects, imperfectly, but it does reflect it, then you realize that everybody's got that inner constitution that protects their rights and freedoms no matter what. We have no right to convert anybody else to anything except mutual respect and freedom and care for each other. That's about the limit. Anything else is us getting lost in our own egos and arrogance, and as soon as we start condemning anybody, we set up problems that we're going to have to learn from. So anyway, when the Constitution was written to protect freedom, private property, life, and the ability to live and speak and believe any way that you want it, as long as you don't take away the rights of others, it reflected something that is permanently in force, even if this one gets completely overrun and various groups, governments, and corporations, or philosophies or religions or anything else tell themselves that they're, a gang that is in the right, that they're allowed to kill or hurt everybody else because everybody else is wrong and they're right. The real inner constitution still exists no matter what happens. And it's very powerful if we can reconnect to it. Consciousness has to be the final solution because any belief system has limitations, and it's only things that you say. It has to be something that you become. It doesn't mean memorizing what's written for you to memorize. It means becoming something different, something that you originally were. So we have to find ways to not follow orders in our own life that we're following, to even think harm toward other people. Remember, in medicine, there used to be this oath that they took, Hippocratic oath to Hippocrates, old Greek physician, who said, "Do no harm." It doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself. You have to do that. But do no harm otherwise, not just in medicine, but in your thoughts. Even if you have to defend yourself with lethal force, which is your absolute right and responsibility when your life is in danger, or your kids or your family or your neighbors or anybody else, you do not have an obligation to have condemnation for other people in your mind. You just have to be looking at what are you being tested on right now, and where are you blocking that flow of positive energy and love going through you and healing you. That's an ultimate question for healing. And if you're interested in your own health, then you have to let that flow through. And when you learn how to move along that continuum, like of what you're eating, for example, toward more raw food, more live food, all organic, never eating GMOs, never drinking fluoridated water, staying away from cell towers if you can, developing your own energy field so that you can withstand the destructive energy from cell towers and smart meters and everything, which you can do. And we talked about that in the class we just held last Monday. And you can get the archive free and share it and listen to it. Even when you're doing all those things, there's an ulterior motive for that. And it's to allow this more powerful, positive, healing energy to flow through you. And eating things that are bad for your physical body block the energy. They cloud your mind. They make it so you can't understand things, because the same blood flow that goes in your body goes to your brain. And if you clean it up, you have new understanding that you never would have imagined before, and new energy. So I'm just suggesting that we spend our time as well as we can. Pay attention mostly to yourself, and make sure the power that's coming through you is not limited. And if it's not totally putting us in a state that's ecstatic with super high energy that never wanes, then we're blocking it in subtle ways. Either by physical things that we're doing, we're eating garbage, or drinking bad stuff, or smoking things into our lungs, which I don't care what they are. The lungs weren't designed for solid particles. And if you want to see if you're addicted to that, just try stopping for a few months. Find out your addictions, whatever they are. And you can't fight them because you have backlash from that. But find the place in yourself. There's somewhere internally that has tension that you're holding, that is what is allowing that addiction, whatever it is, to have power over you and make you a slave. If you doubt you're a slave, try to get away from it for a few months. And find that place of tension inside yourself that's holding on to it. And just give it permission to relax. And what's really funny about this is that when you find the way to do that, it's the most effortless thing that you ever tried. And all these intense efforts and stresses and gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to give up some bad food that's hurting you, or, eat something that's good for you, or whatever it is, that start exercising and not sitting around all day and just stagnating. All the efforts that we did to do those things and the New Year's resolutions and everything by force that never worked. The hard ways are the ways that don't work. The easy ways that are effortless, that are hard to ever find, they work. So it's like we may get to quit early today if no one feels like calling, but before we wrap up, let's talk to Dee and see what's going on with her in California. Hi, Dee. How are you doing today?
Hi, Richard. I'm doing okay. I'm doing actually a lot better than I used to be because some of these truths are really powerful.
If you use them, they turn out that way.
Yeah, so what you're saying about do no harm, I think is very powerful. And I'm questioning everything about my life to try to figure out how to be at ease within myself by not doing any harm to anybody else. And like what you're talking about, some people have jobs that require them to, and they don't question whether it harms other people. They just do what they're told. And I don't want to be like that, even though I'm not working for a boss anymore because of my health issues. I still have to do what's right. And the I guess I could call it a gutter for an analogy.
Yeah.
The gutter that I've been pointed toward going down to follow the path of what has been planned for me in older age is to do this whole Social Security route. I'm going to have a birthday next week and be like really close to the age where I could choose to do that. And right now I've found that I don't have enough means to, I don't know why they call it means exactly, but I don't have a way to have enough money to get enough food right now. So I was pointed toward this avenue very strongly by a friend and also by my own children who didn't want to help support me anymore because they are already burdened themselves to taking this, what they call they used to call it food stamps. I don't know if they stamped a piece of paper or what, but now it's all a digital card, like a credit card, but you never see the money, but they give you a small allotment of quote-unquote food money. And so I kind of got pushed right into that, but it was my choice to say, okay, do you have faith to just go without food for a while, or do you want to take that? So I'm all for exploring things and seeing, what feels right. And so I did the food stamp quote-unquote thing. And I feel like I'm doing harm by doing that to other people that, like my grandkids, for example, they're working, or they're not of working age yet, but my children are. And it's like 2/3 of the people are collecting these benefits and 1/3 of the people are providing them by force, because if they didn't agree to do that, they wouldn't have a job, because they have to be in on this system to do it at all.
Right.
But personally, I feel like I'm ready to not do that anymore. I think that this whole stepping out in faith, that you get stronger and more powerful things come as you do that, is a really neat idea. So, I'm willing to try to grow my own food. But then I thought, well, I don't have money to buy dirt. And where I live, there's tons and tons and tons of gophers, which I don't want to kill them. But so I thought, well, I'll make a raised beds out of whatever I can find around, and then I need to put dirt in it in order to grow my food. So then I thought, well, I don't have money to buy the dirt, so what am I going to do to get away from these digital food supposed benefits? But then I'm looking at the amount of money that those supposed benefits buy me only 1 week out of a month of food, which isn't working anyways. So logically, I've got to figure out a way to get dirt. So I have a river nearby. So I went down to the river with some empty buckets, and I proceeded to put some dirt into the buckets and bring them home. And then I was told, well, that's illegal. It's not legal to take dirt from the wilderness area.
Amazing.
Because somebody else owns the wilderness, not you. And so I thought, well, if that's illegal, that's the way I'm going to go, because I think it's more morally illegal to do the benefit thing than it is to get dirt from the wilderness. So I had to weigh that out from my own personal experience and try to decide what way I'm going to go with it. And, you know, it's an experiment. I don't know how it's going to turn. I don't know if I'm going to be able to grow any more than 1 week of food supply either. But I think that my soul, my moral consciousness is going to be a lot happier, at least when I try to do it that way. I don't believe that it's illegal to get dirt from the wilderness in my gut.
Right.
Even if somebody tells me that, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, the people that think they own most of this what they call wilderness, is the corporation, the net of corporations that are masquerading as a federal government right now. And they're not legally allowed to own it, actually, because the federal government is only allowed to own, I think, 10 miles square, not 10 square miles, but 10 miles square, which is bigger, in Washington, D.C., and a certain amount of small places for forts and what they call magazines, which I guess are armories, and a few other things like that, but that's just about it. And all of these, I think right now they're claiming that they own about 35 or 40% of all the acreage in the entire U.S. And that's not only not authorized, it's specifically illegal. But, you know, again, they're a gang, and they're a powerful gang. They have more weapons than any other gang I know of. And they have millions and millions of citizens who are willing to, you know, enforce their illegal dictates in order not to lose their jobs, which you can't condemn because it's really hard to turn down your orders and lose your job. And the same thing is coming in from so many sides. But I'd say in your situation, you have to use your own feeling to know, but it's not evil, in my opinion. I mean, if you disagree, it's fine. But I don't feel like it's evil to take the so-called benefits in a society where they've forced you to, you know, basically they've gutted the economy intentionally, and they've created the unemployment and everything mainly by two means. One is the activities of the central bank, which has devalued the currency by about 98% since they took over, so that the same money buys 2% of what it used to buy. That's one thing. And the other is the so-called free trade, which destroyed the industry in the U.S., and that's why it was put in place to do that. So, you know, early in the show, I was talking about, I really feel that this economic disaster is, they're planning on using it to totally enslave and then eradicate most of us. And it's moving closer. And I feel really dumb that I haven't been able to think of, you know, the full solution for an alternative system yet, but we really need one. And if you do or don't decide to take food stamps or whatever, I think they call it an EBT card now, I don't think there's anything evil about that at all if you're doing everything you can to try to be productive at the same time. But it's not a reliable solution because they can turn it off. They can get everybody dependent on it, and then they can put strings attached to getting your food, like they did recently in Australia. They managed to get about, I don't know, some huge percentage of the people dependent on government subsistence. And then they said, oh, by the way, you know, with all this evil education about vaccination, anybody that doesn't get all their vaccinations now, they don't get any money on their food card. So we just have to bear in mind they will do that. They're planning to do things like that, and much worse. And they may actually deactivate the electronic card, which they couldn't do with food stamps before, if they write you down as being disobedient to anything. So I don't see anything wrong with using them if you have to intermit, in the interim. But what I really want to see is the creativity that we all have to come up with a system so that we get independent of their, destroyed economy. And it's a high priority. We need to be thinking about how to do it for ourselves and how to do it for whole towns and communities, because right now they've manipulated all of us into a situation where we can just be wiped out, not individuals only, but also towns and cities which have no ability to support themselves. If the government decides that it's time to turn off the electricity, the internet, devalue the money the rest of the way, turn off all the EBT cards at once, we really need, it's not just a matter of storable food, which mostly has no life force in it anyway, unless you choose really wisely. But we need to deal with this little problem of what's being done to us economically. And I think whatever your, inner guidance or gut tells you, I can't think of anything evil about taking their temporary assistance in order to survive if you're doing everything you can do. But that's just how it feels to me. Right.
Well, they have fine print on those things, too, that you don't know about. Like right. I went on, in my state, they have something called Medi-Cal, where if you need to go to the doctor, you have to sign up for this free medical service. I don't know if that's changed with the Obamacare stuff or not, but
I think it's still true.
Yeah, when I was trying to go through that part of the system, I realized that the people that use that only get to go to the doctors that are not doing more cutting-edge care. They actually are the lower-class doctors that aren't that interested in trying to figure out what they can do to get you well. They're just trying to figure out how they can maybe give you some painkillers for a few minor, few symptoms. But if you have a very serious deficiency-type nutritional deficiency illnesses or toxicity illnesses, they do not help you with that. And so then I got the paperwork from signing up for that, and in the fine print at the capital of the state, they had a phone number to call. And I called it, and they said basically what they're going to do is, this isn't free, this is just a loan, so to speak, where they're going to take the money back out of whatever you own when you die, so you have nothing to pass on to your heirs.
Which money are you talking about now that they're going to take back?
Medical insurance, free medical.
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So if it's fine for somebody that doesn't own anything anyways, but if you own anything, even if it's not a liquid asset where you can actually use it to generate an income or anything, they still will have their clause and their tag on it. They call it a lien. They will put a lien on your property, so when you pass, they may not do it while you're still alive, but when you pass, you will not, your children, who may have provided a lot of your care also, will not be able to inherit that because there's a big old lien on it with interest.
Is this Medi-Cal that you're describing?
Yes.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I called Sacramento.
The reason that I've stayed away from so-called healthcare hospitals, Medicare or anything like that, although I'm older than you need to be to start getting it, is unless I get, into a situation like Doug did, or I get hit by a car or something, I don't want anything to do with the medical system at all. I don't want any kind of doctor, whether they're cutting edge or not cutting edge, because they're part of a system that I completely don't believe is useful. And I wouldn't take drugs for anything. And I wouldn't have surgery unless it was a life or death decision.
It's really poor quality care that they're offering anyway.
Right.
But then what you have to trade is you're signing away whatever you own, and if they feel that, and you don't even know what kind of interest they're tagging onto it, that could be compounding. Who knows? Yeah. I'm not talking about Medicaid where you're older and you I'm talking about Medi-Cal where you can be any age.
I see. Okay.
I don't know about the other one.
I thought that the one for people that got older was not alone. It was actually covering a certain percentage of costs. But even if all the costs were covered, even if Obama had not lied and the new medicine, was going to be free, I would never take it, because taking drugs and things to cover up symptoms has a heavy price, and I don't want to pay it.
But they don't tell you that's what's going on until you figure it out.
No, I mean pain. There's two kinds of pain. There's pain when something actually bad is happening. You're getting in an accident or something like that. But there's other pain that's a warning that tends to go on subtly for years, and we get used to it and we disregard it, and it's trying to help us to change and get rid of what's causing it. And drugs are like driving in a car and the oil light comes on, and you take the hammer and break the oil light so you don't have to look at it, and then your engine blows up because you didn't pay attention when the oil pressure went away. So I don't think they're a very attractive option as far as real health is concerned. But I am interested in what we can all do to figure out a way to not be destroyed by the economic plan that our rulers have in mind. That is what you're describing.
Well, by what you said was don't partake in it, really, then you can avoid the strings that are attached. And so that's my goal, is to not be partaking in it. And plus, how do I know
but in order to do that, you've got to have some other means to be okay, not just barely survive, but have your life. And I think we need to find that like right now. I don't think we have indefinite time to work on that. And it's a big health issue, because if you have no money at all, and it's not just food, but the other things that you need, that's going to have an impact on your health. So I would say anybody that is up to it and agrees with this importance of this thing, we need to be thinking of ways that we're not centrally dependent on the system economically. And I think a lot of attention needs to be going into that right now. I wish I had some great answer to suggest. I mean, even what we got involved in trying to get money for Lost Arts through the Gold Project, it's not enough by itself to really solve anything. I mean, to get enough gold to have to take care of you during an economic collapse is not a small amount. It's still
you don't know what they're going to impose onto that either.
No, they might make gold illegal. I mean, it was done before.
Right.
It was done in the 1930s. Now, if they did it now, I don't know how many people would obey that. But even if they don't obey it, it becomes a risk to openly trade it, because if you show it to the wrong person, it might not be that great. So, I mean, there's elements to this solution that we need that go beyond just gold and silver. Because if a few people have plenty of gold and silver, who's going to get kidnapped for ransom the first? They will immediately, if not just killed.
Right.
So we need to be thinking of a way to not have disaster take the society down. And really, that's one of the main motives of the whole discussion and the whole show, is we want all of us to be okay. So what do we have to do? And we're at least sharing information about where does your health come from and what's going to help it. but it's a bigger picture, and all of us, need to contribute experience and knowledge to figuring it out, I think.
I agree. I just kind of wanted to bring out that it may be not really the benefits I receive may not be beneficial to those who are forced into giving them. It's not like they're giving them because they want to give them, although my children are in the generation that grew up, well, this is what we do we go along to get along, and we contribute because that's, expected, that's normal. We're helping everybody else that way, and they don't have a problem with it. But when I said, I don't want the strings attached, I don't want to buy into the system, I would like to keep it in the family, and if I have something that maybe I can pass on to you someday, can you help me now, to figure out how to keep moving forward and living? And they basically they tried to help me for a while, but it was too hard for them, and they just said, well, the way it works, Mom, is you go and you sign up for this and this and this through the state of California. And I'm like, well, that's it? That's my only option? I don't like it.
Well, the other thing to look into is any kind of cooperation with a group of people that you get along with that are dealing with the same challenges. And I think it gets really hard when you can't find people that you can work with harmoniously very commonly. But if you do, then sometimes pooling ideas and resources can give new solutions to things.
I like that. So do you think that blogs would be the way to find that?
There might be. I don't think you'd have to spend money to find it. I think there are all kinds of groups on social media. I know even Alex Jones started a new social media site. I haven't done it because haven't had time for social media. But what is it? Doug may have to remind me what the name of it is and the address. But he's got a social media site for people that listen to his news, are therefore aware of a lot of what's going on in the world and the need for not only preparation but cooperation. And I would start sharing information with people like that. And even if 99% of them, are not in tune with what you're thinking, if 1% of them are, and you can cooperate with more than just yourself, I think that opens up all kinds of new options. So I would really look at that.
So by thinking in my mind that there's only one road to go, which is the one that my children are trying to point me toward, is maybe not the only option. Maybe I can open my mind and say, okay, there's a big universe out there. Maybe some other options will materialize if I start
because there's more than just you trying to figure it out, fortunately.
Right.
So if there's 300 and some million people in America, and there's other people on the outside who have some similar challenges too, but especially in America, you've got people who are, being subjected to increasing financial pressure, ramping up. Some of them who had lots of money who suddenly lost it because of what's going on. Other ones who are, just wanting to find some way other than government dependence to get by. And if you can find where they're talking, I think that might be useful.
Okay, well, that's a good. Like where I live, there was a big fire, and we may have another one. We may have one every year. I don't know, but it's really frightening because people have lost everything they owned, and then they may have previously avoided falling into the trap of the quote-unquote system. But now that the fire burned everything, people that used to be able to have a house that maybe was from an old-fashioned code that wasn't like a big deal, now they're having to rebuild with new codes, which means crazy things like having sprinkler systems in their roof and different things like that.
Right.
So, things they can't afford, and a lot of them didn't have insurance because they were out in the country. It was a high fire area, so they couldn't get insurance. Well, the insurance, and then I know one lady that did have insurance, and they're still having struggles with the system. And so they are given lawyers that are trying to handle these victims as a group, but there's more than one competing lawyer that are presented to them. So they went with an out-of-town lawyer at first, a lot of them, and they would only do so much. Then they found out later, about 6 months into it, that it's going to take 5 years for anything to materialize from their case against the electric company that caused the fire. So then there's a local lawyer, and so a lot of people wanted to switch from the big city lawyer to the local lawyer, and they were having trouble figuring out how to go about doing that because they'd already signed contracts and this and that, which they never dreamed this would ever happen to them, and they would now be stuck in this crazy merry-go-round system that doesn't really help you right now very much. They might little things here and there, like. So they found out that if they talked to the local lawyer, that he could talk to the out-of-town lawyer to get them switched over to the local lawyer instead of them having to do it themselves. So I don't know if that information would be helpful to anybody or not, but
yeah, it might.
Doing it.
I think it's an example that there are more options than we usually know about, and keep looking. The other thing is Doug just came up with 2 addresses of possible groups that could be talking about this kind of thing, so they could help people figure out economic alternatives and other kinds of alternatives while there's still time. One is called SEEN, like if something is seen versus unseen, seen.life. S like Sam, E like Edward, E like Edward, and like Nancy.life. And the other one that I was looking for that is Alex Jones's people that want to talk about, preparation and all kinds of things is planet.infowars.com. And I would think that's a social media group.
Oh.
And I think it could be really interesting.
Okay, good.
People working on the same kind of issues, in other words.
Right. Yeah, it's getting very challenging, but I feel especially very grateful for all this information because this is cutting edge, what's usable right now in my heart that's going to uplift me over any kind of I'm not going to be stuck in it. With this information, I'm going to be above the ditch and
that's right.
Forward.
And working on hormones and stuff is really popular in natural medicine now, and people are having appointments, frequently with certain doctors that are saying, okay, now we know what's happening. This hormone is low, this one is high, and there's all these different environmental toxins that mess up the hormone balance, and they change how you feel, and they change your physical health and your aging or reverse aging and all that. But they don't often mention that one of the most instantaneous hormone balancing things is where your attention is and what your emotions are that come from that. So if you're focused on things that are full of fear and depression and frustration, and you stay absorbing that, your blood chemistry and your hormone balances and everything, they're changed instantly, and your cells start to die. And if you want to change your hormone balance and you don't have the money for 100 blood tests or whatever it would take, or that there's a better way, get in touch with where your attention is, what your programming is, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and disconnect it and put it back on what is your personal source of incredible beauty and inspiration, and don't move it again. And when you find out that it fell off, put it back, and immediately every cell in your body is going to be affected. So it doesn't mean not to do the physical stuff, but it's a start, and it makes the rest easier.
It does, and I've been doing that. I've actually been doing both at the same time. Well, physical, spiritual, mental, and trying to get back on track, and it's working. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and if you're determined to only eat things that are good for you, you'll find a way to do it, because I've been through times personally when I had no money at all, or at least very little, and I really had an issue with what food I could buy. And if I couldn't buy something I knew was organic and live and fresh, I would just not eat. And it worked out good, because I learned a lot about fasting, and I got a lot more in touch with communication with the body, and it was very instructional, where if I had said, well, I can eat more constantly if I will buy these 25-cent packages of noodles, then it's like this fog moves into your brain and your body, and there's a lot that you can't see and feel. And if you want to sharpen your own abilities, the rest of the stuff will come to you one way or another. Right, and I have to listen to my gut, and so my gut said, you got to plant some food, so. Yeah, it's a great idea, and it's a good energy anyway, because when you're touching the soil, you're being grounded and you're getting all kinds of new input. And then now, when you're not totally starving to death, check out some of those groups and see if there's people that, you could both energize each other. Okay, will do. Thank you so much. Okay, so have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you, you too. All right, talk to you next time. Okay, bye. Bye. Okay, I'm still looking for ways to wrap it up here, but we've got John who's been waiting in Dallas, and let's see what John has to say and what's going on with you. John, hi. How are you doing?
Good morning to you and Doug.
Thank you.
Question. I shared your podcast that you had on Monday, which was excellent, on the different ways about helping people understand about EMF pollution and chemtrails, and it started a discussion with some of my friends in different parts of the country where is there a difference between, for example, living in the middle of nowhere in Texas and living in downtown Los Angeles or in Arizona? For example, if somebody has chronic health problems and they live in downtown LA, would it be a big improvement for them to move to somewhere where there is, in theory, less EMF pollution, less chemtrail being spread, or can we really measure the difference?
Yeah, I just give you, in my experience and my perception of that question right now, there's absolutely no doubt that living as far from concentrated populations as you can is better. I don't think there's any doubt at all. In the cities, you've got, those are the most dangerous places, but they're the places that most of the people live in America and most of the Western countries. So what I'm saying about it is, to feel bad because you live in the middle of the city is making it worse. Right. And instead of doing that, always look at what you do have available. And what you do have available is always mostly inside yourself. So, take advantage of all positive things. There's also normally good sources of natural food stores and things inside of cities. And for the moment, when they're operating, I would say take full advantage of that.
Right.
And the other, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My friends who live in LA are very health conscious. They go to the farmers market, several times a week, and listening to the podcast and in our conversation, they're like, so then using some of the different suggestions you made about helping to, protect the body, like you said, using the right mentality and the right pattern of living, basically, not being negative and not basically trying to attack other people, but be supportive and positive, and using those different things that you were discussing, is it, and of course using the other technologies for removing, these toxic things from our environment. They don't have the ability to move, so they're like, is it going to be okay for longevity? They're just as interested as I am in longevity and the body lasts as long as we want. Is it still counterproductive to longevity to stay in LA, or should they basically move?
Well, a lot of people have moved when they're not really prepared to move. Sounds pretty noisy where you are. Are you in a place where there's some interference or crashing sounds?
Sorry, yeah, that was mine.
Okay. All right. So a lot of people tend to move and jump into it when they're not prepared to move. And then it can be bad and they end up right back in the city. So if you're not really, prepared and you don't have a place to go and people to do it with who are, harmonious, then you can actually waste your time by moving prematurely. And, you get a lesson from that. But I think it makes more sense to take advantage of what you've got there, keep yourself in really good condition, and then learn about the energy field around each person is stronger than EMF, and it's stronger than chemtrail fallout, and it's stronger than nuclear fallout. And if you can learn to optimize that more and more, then you can these things can start to bounce off of you. But then while you're in the city, if you have the opportunity to get the finances together to arrange something with people that you're happy with to move to a bit more natural and clean environment, I think that would be great. It's just not possible for everybody.
Right, that's what we're discussing. I mean, they have a situation with their work and their financial income. Basically, they're really isn't that a way for them to transfer to another state that easily. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'd say take advantage of the money while it exists, but those are. It's not the rulers who are controlling that system do not plan to leave it in place long term. So while it's there, I would say make good use of it. And I'd say, to me, I would be getting some precious metals together, and I would be getting a place, or at least planning toward getting some kind of a place out of town where you can be in direct touch with the soil and produce food and water.
Right.
And, if you can't do that, then maybe there's a place in the city. I think there's a guy named, what is he? Ron Finley, who is also in Los Angeles somewhere. And he was finding vacant lots and other things in the city that he was turning into organic gardens.
Cool.
And yeah, I thought that was a really great idea. And he's helping a lot of people to get fresh organic food that's local, that they grow right where they live just about. And also, being focused collectively on a garden operation creates bonds between people that you can't get from an iPad.
No. And my friends back in LA, they grow quite a few sprouts for juicing and the grasses for juicing.
That's great. There's also, vacant properties even in the middle of the city where they can be turned into community gardens, and I think that would be a really good idea to do. And if they've got an income now and some money, they could help that happen faster.
Yeah, I'll share that with them.
Yeah, and tell them about Ron Finley too.
I will. And basically, we're just really excited to hear the podcast because, of course, being in LA and other parts of the country, some other friends on the East Coast, we hear about chemtrails, but it's hard to find information on whether or not there's a difference on the East Coast versus the West Coast. I mean, we hear about radiation.
Yeah, the radiation is bad everywhere, and so are the chemtrails. And, there may be minor variations, but those are pretty much, the plan is to blanket the world with the EMF. And the chemtrails are already blanketing most of the world. So I would work on, our own personal energy field, which is affected by all of our physical habits as well as our thoughts and emotions. And the other thing is, if you're going to be in the city long term, why not try to start having some impact and input into the corporation that runs the city?
Right. And the mentality.
Well, you could actually start participating in, whether it's water districts, school boards, city councils, or things like that. It's not impossible for an actual sane person to get onto those groups. And if they did, one of the ideas that came to me is that towns could be thinking of their own sustainability as well, not like Agenda 21, which is a corruption of the word, but real sustainability, which is totally reasonable. And that means the city itself could be setting aside some of the land that it owns, which is usually in or around the city, and start putting in organic farms.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to stay in Los Angeles, have an input to make Los Angeles sane. And if some really good people start running for city council on the platform of freedom, not forced environmental benefits, but freedom, and then opening up, this is a big debate where I live, is that the people who are in favor of the environmentally beneficial things, which I am, they're mostly thinking that these have to be forced on everybody, which is a terrible idea. And government doesn't need to do that. It needs to just stop killing the inventors of the good technologies and stop suppressing them and bring back freedom, like the Declaration of Independence said in the Constitution, except on a local level, because the Constitution does not really protect local freedoms very well at all. And the local government, you got to see what's in their city charter, read it and learn it. If you're going to live there, you should know what the city charter says, you should know what the county charter says, and you should know what the state constitution says. And then somebody, get connected to people who care about quality of life. And in that cooperative group, not a communal group where you lose your privacy and your private property, but a cooperative group where everybody's respected as a separate individual, but you share your gifts with each other and your talents, and talk about trying to take the city away from the people who want to use it in harmony with the New World Order and the fake environmentalists, and bring it back to freedom, where the real environmental technologies would be freed and come out in the open, and free energy that's existed for at least 100 years, and actually much more, would be allowed to come out without the people dying. If you're going to be in a place, then try to start having an input into the well-being of the whole place, and you can do that.
Right.
What if you had great people running for office and everything?
Yeah, that's why I shared the seminar, because I basically, when this topic's come up before about chemtrails and EMF pollution, there's the kind of mentality of, well, if you're stuck in a big city, that you're pretty much, in big trouble as far as health and being bombarded. And I told them that, like in the seminar, there are ways. I mean, there's solutions. It's not like you just have there are effective countermeasures, and there's so much power in those that if you really learn about them and apply them, you can be fine in the middle of a bad environment. There are stories about people who have done that fully that almost no one would believe, but they're true. I mean, in the middle of bomb fields and everything else, that they were completely unaffected because of learning how to use their own consciousness. And that's available for absolutely anybody brave enough to do the work that it takes to get it. And, the other thing that I think is really important that strikes me too, is that we know the majority of people are in the cities. We know the majority of people, as it looks right now, are not going to get out of them. So, because those people are just as important as we are, it's not like there's me on this side and everybody else on that side. That's a real misunderstanding. We're all intimately tied together. And what happens to one of us in a very real way happens to everybody. And the other thing is what we talked about, the way to serve yourself and effectively be selfish and make it work is to just pour out whatever you can to help everybody else. And that paradox is absolutely true. So if most of the people are in the city and they're not getting out anytime soon, partly because of economics and partly logistics, and they don't have the skills to survive in the country anyway, what about
saying, okay, let's heal the cities. That feels really, right to me. And yeah, they're terrible, but instead of thinking only that we get out while the rest of the city blows up and destroys the world, that might not be the best plan. So why don't we heal the cities? And if you're there to help that healing.
Right. I basically agree, but if they all start flocking towards the wilderness, then that gets packed up and just congested.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's room in the country for everybody if it was treated correctly. But the point is, it's unrealistic to think that everybody's going to leave the cities right now. So, and they're quickly putting laws into place, Agenda 21 and other things that make that almost impossible for large numbers. So, as long as that's the case, if you're talking about the analogy to martial arts with Aikido, right, versus karate, because karate wants to use primarily force directly against the opponent. And Aikido has the much bigger opponent rushing at you to kill you, and you just flow, like Bruce Lee would say, water, and you can't, the opponent's energy is what defeats them. So without any effort on your part, just the right direction of attention. So if you apply that to the situation in the cities, instead of thinking the obvious, which is how do we all escape before it blows up?
Right.
What if we thought about changing the direction so it doesn't have to blow up? And what would it take to heal the city? And the city has to be producing all the food that it needs to consume. Because if the trucking stops, you don't want everybody to starve to death and kill each other. So and this could be presented in every major city, and it could be organized into a renaissance of organic farming, taking what Ron Finley and others are doing and organizing it into a coherent, program. There should be a group convening, or more than one right now, about a specific plan on how to do that. And not just food, but water. And then if the water's coming from wells, which it will in most cities, how to protect the wells against EMPs. And this is the kind of thing that would be worthwhile for city councils to be working on.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Thank you. And then I said, hopefully they're tuning in that he's coming to the West Coast. I'll call them afterwards.
Yeah, let them know. They can hear the archive and think about it. But I would think, I think this would be seen as revolutionary to the survivalists, because they're all thinking, how do I survive and get out of the city? And that's very reasonable, because cities are intentionally set up to be death traps right now. The power structure knows it, and they're not making it better. They're making it worse. So anybody that sees that and cares about the people that are stuck there, not just themselves, they need to right now instantly be working on strategy for reversing that course and making the cities not only survivable but healthy. There's no place for Wi-Fi of any kind in the cities. Maybe they can't get out of the chemtrails, but they don't have to be doing Wi-Fi. They just need to hardwire all of the electronic connections in all the schools. If there's a device that you can only use Wi-Fi, don't use it. It's not a big sacrifice. If you have a cell phone, never put it on your body. Don't eat stuff that's not organic. And then think of how the city, like a person, could make itself healthy and sustain its life. And the cities have money. They have way more money than they're saying. Most of it is off the books. It's called the CAFR accounts. And anybody that learns about that can locate it easily. Cities have vast amounts of money that they've accumulated over decades. And so they have the resources to do good things. And they're all probably violating the city charter in a lot of ways that they just should not continue putting money into. And then they should take some of that money that they've already got and put it into the city surviving and getting healthy. And I think it would be incredible to see what could happen.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. It's very, very encouraging for them and for me, because I was thinking, well, wow, what do people like in, New York or LA or Tokyo, these giant megalopolises, how they get out of it? So that's great.
Yeah, we have more creativity among the people of positive intent than the global rulers could ever imagine. All they've got is the people who are confused and who think that killing others is really good for them and all this kind of thing. We have people who are at least benevolent, and they have, by definition, thousands of times more creative potential. And a lot of them are together already in the cities. So why not get them connected with each other and start putting together groups that specifically talk about this and take the lesson from the destructive side, because they're really into strategy, organization, and planning, and say, thank you, that's a great idea, let's use it for something good. It could start today.
Okay, thanks. I will let them know, but I really appreciate all that insight. It's very inspiring and actually kind of exciting. It's basically, I think that basically there's a lot more potential for them than they realize in that situation, where basically they already. Well,
your comment and your questions really helped me to get clear on it by having to discuss it with you, because I realized, I'm right, that if you're looking at one person, if they leave the city and go into the country where there's a good food system and a good water system and a good property system and everybody's cooperating, then of course that's a lot healthier. But how many people is that going to apply to out of the whole population? Not very many right now. No. Maybe later, but not now. So with the situation that we really do have, we should not be wasting our time. We need to make that good. And there are ways to do it.
Yeah, there's millions of people in these cities, and they can't, again, just not.
That's right. And in spite of the crazy people that have been joining gangs, whether they're government or private or corporate or religious or whatever, there's a lot of people that have not fallen for that yet, and that are still really wanting to figure out healing solutions and wondering if there's anybody else who would be there to do it with them. And I think, it's immediately time for those people to connect and start setting things up.
Well, your show has been a great way to do that, and they really appreciated the podcast that I shared with them that you had on that topic. And again, little by little, hopefully more people can really tune in and to the message that you and Doug are putting out about this kind of thing, and really basically take the message and then get it moving in each of their respective cities and environments.
Yeah, I think we might actually start. It occurs to me that we may be able to use these weekly shows as kind of a combination between the show and a class, and start having a topic. Like I was thinking it'd be good since 1 out of 2 people is projected to have cancer soon. I thought, and since we're not allowed to talk about that, I thought it'd be a great thing to have as a theme for a show, and just say everything. But it occurs to me now that, thanks to what you brought up, that we should have one or more on healing the cities.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that'd be fantastic.
We just have to have a way to let people know about them, because right now we're not reaching many people. And I'm not an expert in how to do that, so we have to figure that out.
Well, I'll help you. I'm working on my end, and I'm basically trying to share your show with as many people as possible. So I'll keep doing that. But yeah, that'd be fantastic, because there's so many facets, like you said, of basically healing a city.
Yeah.
The water supply, basically where the power's coming from, such. So there's endless topics and different ways. People who maybe they're not great at farming or gardening, but maybe they are good with electronics. Maybe they could.
Exactly, and you've already got the pool of talents right there, close together.
Yeah.
I mean, to not use it and only be thinking about escaping is a real waste of energy.
Right, and not realistic.
And that's why it's a waste, because it's not going to happen right now. And even if it happens for you, what about all the people you leave behind? The soldiers talk about, we'll never leave a fallen comrade behind, right? Wait a minute. What are all those other people?
Right.
So, there's a different way to look at it.
Well, this is a very exciting way to do it. So I really appreciate all that you're doing with these seminars and these shows.
Yeah, we're going to think about, better ways to make use of them. And hopefully, some of the people that we reach, you and others, will think about how we can let others know about the shows. Doug actually put in some of his own money last week to try to promote the special class on resistance to EMF and chemtrails and stuff, and Facebook blocked it. So we'll probably get some resistance, especially if we're dealing with important subjects. But I know there's ways around it because we've got a bigger creative pool than they do by far. And the reason it's not obvious is we don't have an efficient system of communication yet, but I think we could get it.
We'll find it. And again, I shared it with quite a few people. I said most of the people I gave this information to listen, and then we discussed it afterward. So little by little, it's going to start gathering momentum.
Okay. Well, we may have the first one of those experimental class/shows next Saturday, so we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. I'll let people know.
Yeah, please, and we'll do the same thing right away.
Well, thank you, Richard and Doug, for all the great work you guys do, and basically have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, John. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, well, I don't know if we can get it organized in time to be ready for next Saturday, but maybe. And then we have to think about how to let everybody know in that short time. I'll probably put it in a newsletter, so if any of you guys want to be on the free newsletter that goes out everywhere, it's at lostartsradio.com. You just sign up for that, and whatever we manage to put in there, you're going to get it. And you can check out the other stuff there, see if the gold that we put in there is useful to you for making money or saving little bits of gold. But in addition to that, which I still think would be really useful, gold and silver would be good to get if you have the money for it. But and learning everything you can to get yourself in good shape, because we need you to make your best contribution to the future of the whole planet, and especially the part of it where you're living. So you're incredibly important as an individual, and anybody that wants to make you feel otherwise is misleading you, because they don't really know it for themselves either. But you have unlimited positive and healing power that could flow through you, not from your personality level, because all of us are small compared to the big picture that way, but connected to our source through the energy that comes through, no matter what you believe or call it, is absolutely unlimited, except by what we think is impossible. So if you just find out what that is and drop it, you'd be ready to experience some unusual, exciting things. Do your homework this week if you think of some from the show that we've been talking about. Share the free class archive, which Doug has put up on YouTube, and that was just from last Monday. It would still be valuable to people. And thanks to John, we're going to really start putting some attention into this idea of healing the cities, since that's where most of us are. And maybe we won't get very far, in the time we've got left, but who knows? If we really show that we intend to do it, maybe some things will be rearranged and, against all apparent odds or appearances of what's going on. The quality of what we put in, even if we have one day to do it, will not be lost. So thanks for being with us. If you have money and you want to donate to keep us on the air, that would be nice. The money goes to the Research Institute, which will be helping everything to keep going on and expanding the educational work. It's not political, but it is nonprofit, tax deductible. There's a donate button on both of the sites, LostArtsResearchInstitute.org and LostArtsRadio.com. You can also give me feedback if you have any. Richard at LostArtsRadio.com, and I'll read all of that. And respond to as much as I can. Look at Doug's site, see what he's doing beyond just the show at diamonddiscaudio.com. And what did I forget to tell you? I think we covered most of everything. I really appreciate your time, and especially whatever you do in trying to apply these things and be a source of healing. Even if you never say anything to anybody, it's just as powerful by what you do inside yourself. And then the only reason why what you say matters after that is because it conveys what you've done inside yourself. So if you want to work for some good cause and you're not doing your internal homework, then you can fight for the best cause in the universe, and you're going to end up inspiring people to fight each other. But if you do your homework and change inside, like Michael Jackson and John Lennon and all these other musicians who had to be killed for their message tried to spread and did spread, it's what's internal that matters. So change that inside yourself. Find out what programs you're running now. They are there. Get quiet enough to find out what they are and decide whether they're the ones you want. That gives you something to work on this week. And watch for an announcement. If we can get it together fast enough to integrate a class with next week's show, we'll do that, or at least some new ideas. Really nice to have you with us, and I wish you the best in whatever you're working on this week. And pay attention, do what you can, and remember next Saturday's show. But in addition to the show tomorrow night, we're having Gabriel Cousins back. That's going to be really interesting, and hope to see you there too, and on the site if you get a chance. Talk to you next time.